Welcome everyone to the 5th and final issue of the DC Sonic crossover event. This has been a very interesting experience, and I'll talk more about that later. First, we have an issue to go through, and from here on out, there will be spoilers on everything DC and Sonic related. Previously in the crossover, Sonic's world has been isolated in a pocket dimension thanks to Darkseid's dimensional engine going haywire. With Darkseid's Ragnarok taking the bulk of the effects, the Justice League took the opportunity to travel the world and gather the remaining 6 emeralds. Cyborg figured out that all 7 emeralds are linked to each other and was able to send the gathered 6 to the DC universe. The hope being Sonic and his friends would use the 6 to get back using the one on the Ragnarok as a guide, which they did. Now that all 12 heroes have reunited, it's time for them to end Darkseid's plans once and for all. With the Ragnarok at the center of the dimensional instability, Tails and Cyborg begin working on a way to get inside. This allows members of the two teams to briefly play catch up with one another. We learn things like Knuckles letting Superman's robots take care of the Fortress of Solitude. Yes, he has robots, I've seen Superman vs. the Elite. And Amy briefly visiting Themyscira. Wish we could have seen these events, but whatever. Tails and Cyborg come up with a plan to board the Ragnarok and fix everything. They're going to pull the same trick used to get the Sonic League home. Use the 6 emeralds connection to the 7th to home in and open a boom tube near it. Then once all 7 emeralds are together, they'll use them in an inverter in tandem with the dimensional engine to fix this mess. With the game plan set, the 12 heroes open the way towards the final confrontation. Naturally, Sonic and the Flash arrive in Darkseid's chamber first. Darkseid was not idle while reality was collapsing. He was learning to bend it to his will with the help of the Chaos Emerald, though he admits he would be trapped if not for the heroes' need to save the world. He creates an avatar of himself out of the environment to attack everyone, but it doesn't last thanks to it being made of rock, and Darkseid losing the emerald thanks to the Green Lanterns distracting him long enough for Sonic to snatch it. Though, as we'll later see, Darkseid doesn't really need the emerald to control the environment. Tails and Cyborg's analysis of the engine informs them that its output is on par with the emeralds, which means they can use it to synchronize with their inverter once they get emerald number 7. Like I said earlier, Sonic has successfully nabbed it, but getting it to the cybernetic smart guys is easier said than done thanks to the Ragnarok's distorted environment. So Sonic and the Flash come up with the most insane plan to reach their destination. They will run over there, but use the bottoms of each other's feet as a substitute for solid ground. You know what? Screw it. I love this. Darkseid won't be denied his victory, so he blasts his Omega Beams. This time, the heroes couldn't redirect them, and it struck Sonic. That's bad. Or so it seems. Thing is, it struck Sonic just as he was placing the 7th emerald into the inverter, and Sonic fans should know that Sonic plus 7 emeralds equals Supersonic, meaning the Omega Beams are just a bee sting to him. That's good. I should point out that prior to the Omega Beam strike, Sonic pushed Flash out of the way because he knew he'd become Super and survive. Flash can't. While Supersonic gives the heroes another powerhouse to hold off Darkseid, the process of transforming actually involves Sonic absorbing the emeralds themselves. Thankfully, Sonic left enough residual energy in the inverter to finish the plan. They only need a sufficient charge to get things started. That's where the Flash comes in. He'll use the Speed Force to give them the necessary power. He just needs to get up to speed first. Tails provides him with a makeshift treadmill using his tails, and Cyborg will use his shield to help with the friction. After being restrained and wailed on by every other hero, Darkseid has had enough. He channels his energy into the distorted area with the intention of erasing all of reality and our heroes along with it. It won't come to it, as Flash has finished gathering up enough charge, and as soon as he touched the inverter, cue an energy surge that stretches across both worlds. Which means it's time for the reset button. The DC and Sonic heroes are back on their proper worlds, and time has reset back to before Darkseid's invasion. Meaning that Master Emerald's restored, cities were never attacked, and Sonic, Tails, and Amy can have an uninterrupted picnic. Tails and Cyborg planned it this way, as they explain it to their respective teams. Yes, it's one of those resets that doesn't erase everyone's memory of the events. This bums Amy out, since she enjoyed it all, and now it's like it never happened. Look at it this way, Amy, the worlds are saved, and with the Ragnarok effectively neutralized as part of the reset, Darkseid won't be bothering anyone for a long time. Although, Sonic secretly longs for one last race against the Flash. It appears all's well that ends well, right? Wrong. In the DC universe, Lex Luthor is chatting with someone about how the hero's recent actions have threatened all reality, and that men of vision like them should take direct action to prevent it from happening again. The person he's talking to? Dr. Eggman. It turns out, a side effect of fixing space-time is leaving the boundaries between the two worlds open, and they're going to take advantage of it. And so the crossover ends with the two celebrating their new partnership with the reveal of what appears to be the Death Egg robot with Lex Luthor's green and purple coloring. The real heroes of this finale are the smart guys and the speedsters. Okay, that's not fair. Everyone played their part in the final battle. The Green Lanterns were the ones that ultimately distracted Darkseid long enough for Sonic to snatch the Emerald, and the powerhouses and gadgeteers were able to keep him at bay long enough for the plan to be pulled off. Batman had the right idea about buying time. Sure, he mentioned seconds, but every second counts, and they can stack. And it pays off, as by the time Darkseid pulls the Erase All Reality stunt, the heroes were able to execute the Save All Reality plan. Though again, it's all thanks to the smart guys setting up the inverter, and the speedsters providing the necessary juice, Supersonic's residual energy, and Flash's Speed Force energy. Besides, it's not like the speedsters could do anything else thanks to the state of the Ragnarok during the fight. Lack of solid ground and all. Resetting things back to before the villain caused havoc definitely reminds me of Sonic Generations. In that game, something that can alter space-time, the Time Eater, arrived at Sonic's birthday picnic and sent everyone into the timeless white space. It would later be revealed that the Time Eater was controlled by two versions of Dr. Eggman. Once the threat was dealt with by two Supersonics, everyone returns to and resumes the picnic, while the Eggmans remain trapped in white space until they somehow escape. The crossover begins when a space-time force, Darkseid's Ragnarok, arrives and interrupts Sonic and his friends' picnic. This time it's a full-blown invasion. Then, after everything that's happened in the crossover, things reset back to before the invasion, which includes seeing Sonic, Tails, and Amy back at the picnic, and they resume eating after discussing their latest adventure. It even ends with Eggman in another world with another mad scientist, though this time it was by choice. And to complete the comparison, both generations and this crossover have a version of the Death Egg robot. The crossover also reminds me of another Sonic game featuring weird space-time shenanigans. Of course, I'm referring to the infamous Sonic the Hedgehog 2006. That game started with the Soliana Festival of the Sun, and then the chaos of the game happened, including Sonic getting killed. No joke. The main villain Mephiles, who's half of the time god Solaris, actually kills him. Don't worry, he gets better. The climax even takes place in a distorted reality where space and time are meaningless, and once the reset button is pressed, in this case erasing Solaris from existence, the game ends back at the Festival of the Sun. This time it goes off without a hitch, and with the possible exception of a couple of individuals, Sonic included, no one remembers the events of the game.
No! I want to exist!
Shut up. You killed Sonic. You deserve to go bye-bye for that. Even if you were an awesome villain in a number of people's eyes, myself included. Anyway, before I give my overall thoughts on the crossover as a whole, there are some small moments that I enjoyed, namely the catch-up between the heroes before the final battle. Admit it, the way Wonder Woman picks up Amy is adorable, and it seems a little Amy has rubbed off onto Wonder Woman because the latter briefly used a hammer against Darkseid, courtesy of Jon Stewart. And even while working together, Sonic and the Flash couldn't help but take jabs at each other. Flash referring to Super Sonic as a golden god, no doubt a shout out to the third Sonic film, and Sonic likewise for Flash providing Speed Force juice, which results in both of them calling each other show-offs. It does show how eerily similar these two are. Their little running stunt here really hammers it in. Even in the end, when all is said and done, Sonic still wants to have a final race with the Flash to see who's the fastest. You may get your chance someday. Finally, it's odd that there's no caption character boxes for this issue, after the previous two had them. Though since this is the finale, the comic probably assumes you already know about all the players involved at this point. Now that this crossover is finished, what do I think of it overall? For what it is, I liked it. It does what a crossover needs to do. Put elements from two different franchises together and watch the magic happen, good or bad. I was not expecting anything epic, but I was entertained. The strongest element is the art style. I said this before and I'll say it again. The clashing of the realistic DC style with the video game cartoony style of the Sonic characters really highlight how different each universe is. That doesn't mean the DC characters aren't expressive. Oh no. Adam Bryce Thomas really gave them some lively faces at times. The villains, especially, are given faces that scream, "Oh crap." That includes Darkseid himself upon seeing Super Sonic's appearance. There's also a nice visual touch with the Ragnarok seen throughout the crossover. When it's in control of the dimensional engine, its face is very calm. Then when the engine is out of whack along with reality, the face is in agony. I like that. The second strongest element is the number of references. As I've said going in, I'm approaching this crossover as a Sonic fan, and I got many references to that franchise easily. DC related material, well, what I know comes from adaptations and or research. I think I did okay for the most part, though some of you who know more about DC than I do may disagree, and that's fine. Though there was one obscure Sonic reference I did not pick up until someone in the comments section pointed it out. In issue 3, when Beast Boy changes into an echidna, he called himself an otter. This apparently was a nod to the Rankles the Otter urban legend. Long story short, the UK version of Sega Magazine published an article about a fake secret Sonic & Knuckles game character called Rankles, which is just a recolored Knuckles with some physical alterations. The article even admits that it was fictitious, though some people still believed it at the time. That same scene in issue 3 might also be a jab at Archie Sonic, where for a time, Knuckles was green due to being overpowered with chaos energy. That was many of the weird things that happened in that series. The one thing that really hurt this crossover in my opinion is the one problem I've spoken over and over throughout, the fast pacing. And issue 3 was the one that suffered the most. Like I said in that video, there was plenty of material to have one-shots of the Sonic characters being DC superheroes. That was the main draw, wasn't it? Sonic and his friends having adventures in the DC universe while dressed up as certain characters? Perhaps there was more planned, but time and or limitations were placed on the crossover, and the team had to make do. That would explain some of the off-panel things the Sonic characters mentioned, like Tails' adventure with the Teen Titans, Knuckles in the Fortress of Solitude, and Amy in Themyscira. While the comics may be done, at least for the moment, maybe, I should remind you that the partnership between DC and Sonic will continue until 2026, and that includes releasing action figures and Funko Pops. And at the time of this video's release, we don't know what else is in store between these two companies. Perhaps another mini-series based on the teaser at the end. It could be possible since, according to what I found on Reddit, the first issue was among the top 20 comics sold in the month of March. Number 19 to be specific. In fact, the first issue had at least 3 reprints, and reprints are only done if the current stocks sell out. That in itself increases the chance of a continuation. And I think a second miniseries is doable with Eggman and Luthor as the main threats. Wouldn't be the first time Eggman teamed up with a mad scientist from another universe, though admittedly it was a different continuity, but you get the point. This possible second outing could also be an opportunity to bring in more characters that didn't appear in the crossover. At the same time though, I'm afraid things might get too crowded, and it might be a detriment to the crossover. That is, if a sequel crossover miniseries is made in the first place. For now, it's time to say farewell to this crossover world, and perhaps one day we will return to it. In any case, have a good day everyone.